Sports build champions and leaders, but every champion has moments of struggle, pressure, anxiety, burnout, and those moments deserve real support. PAX Health is proud to sponsor the New Jersey Lacrosse Podcast because they believe mental health care should be available when you need it, as you need it. Therapy and psychiatric services for kids, teens, communities, and families. Telehealth and in-person appointments are available within 48 hours. PAX Health, people helping people. Visit pax.health. That's PAX.health. Lacrosse families, meet Orgo, the calendar app that actually thinks like a sports parent. Orgo syncs with team apps you already use and enriches schedules with real-world logistics. Every event shows travel times, early arrival buffers, carpool assignments, conflict alerts, and time-specific weather so you know what gear to pack. Get your athletes on it too. Orgo teaches time literacy, an executive skill for life. One subscription, whole family. Code LAX25 is 25% off. Just $44 locks in sanity for the whole year. Visit www.orgohq.com. That's www.orgohq.com. JAG Physical Therapy, providing rehabilitative recovery from sports and soft tissue injuries to knee, foot, ankle, hip, shoulder, elbow, and back injuries. Schedule your appointment with JAG Physical Therapy today and meet their experienced team of physical therapists, occupational therapists, athletic trainers, and exercise physiologists invested in your full recovery. Get back the life you love at JAG Physical Therapy, the most awarded physical therapy provider in New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania. For more information or to make an appointment, just visit jagpt.com. That's JAGPT.com. This is the New Jersey Lacrosse Podcast. I'm your host, Keith Glock.
I'm Bill Farr.
I'm Anthony Terranova.
And this here is Gil Swenson. Welcome to the New Jersey Lacrosse Podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first ever edition of the Overtime Podcast of the New Jersey Lacrosse Podcast. I am Keith Glock, and joining me, how does this sound, Coach? The state champions, the Cursed Cup champions from 2025, the head man at Seton Hall Prep, John Svec. How's that sound?
Sounds great. Sounds like we had a lot of fun last year.
I would agree with that. Those are words that I think a lot of all Seton Hall Prep alumni that have been associated with that historic program have been waiting to hear for a long time. You know, obviously, the Seton Hall Prep had that Group 4 state championship back before the non-publics kind of broke out.
Right.
I
was just reminded, actually, I was just sorry to interrupt. I was just reminded by an alum of that it's listed right now on somewhere in our walls that it's a non-public championship. Like, no, it was a Group 4 championship. So like, I guess we'll have to get that fixed.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think people kind of view it from the outside as like getting over the hump. There were a lot of beating Del Barton and getting ahead of those guys. I just feel like, in the minds of a lot of people, it's the Seton Hall Del Barton rivalry here, right? Even though, Bergen Catholic has had a great run and Don Bosco, same deal. Do you guys feel that as like there's an especially ginormous rivalry with Del Barton?
Being new to the area and to New Jersey, you certainly know about all those schools and the games they play and those things, but you don't necessarily feel it, right? And rivalries are made when it's one team wins one year and another team wins another year. So, I think for me, it was the opportunities to go up against a really good competition. But there's a lot of that, especially because they're not public schools. So these kids, it's not like one community and another community, right? These kids are like growing up next to each other, and then one goes to one school and one goes to another. So it's a different aspect to it for sure. And I've been told quite a bit about it, but we didn't beat Del Barton last year. So I can't, it's back and forth right now.
Is that something that's on that? Do the kids talk about that at all? That it's something?
Yeah, I would be lying I would be lying if I said they didn't. I'm sure they do, and I think it's probably coach speak to do the whole like, next it's just the next game. But that's what I believe, and that's what we say. I think if you look at our game against Del Barton last year, they had a really talented team. They were really well coached, and they probably, I felt like they probably went into that game a goal or two ahead of us. Um, because I mean, our guys were jacked up to play it, and leaving in the locker room, I said, guys, this was not to you another game. This was something extra, and we don't need extra. We have a hard, I think you have a hard winning is hard enough. Going into each team and each game, just doing what you need to do to win is the most important thing. And then add on top of it, for whatever reason, perceived or real, it's a Del Barton game or it's the extra rivalry. I mean, talk to the Army Navy guys, right? Like how you manage that is really a challenge. And I'm sure, I don't think we managed it great last year, to be honest with you. And I think that's why they got us. And they just played better that day too.
And do you think coming from the outside too, and being able to have that, like, just that kind of maybe one step removed from all of that to be able to give that perspective to the guys? I mean, it would be very difficult to say it didn't pay off at the towards the end of the
Yeah,
season,
I
right?
hope it did. Yeah, no, I hope it did. And I hope it was. I, some of the guys talked about that loss in retrospect of, hey, you know what? We didn't treat it like another game. And so hopefully they were able to learn from it and do that. We keep preaching as a staff, each game in and of itself, and just worrying about the next play kind of thing. Hopefully some of those guys really learned a little bit from it and were able to that was able to help us. And I don't know. I think if I think back to the Curse Cup final, we had that long delay, and it was really cool to see our guys enjoy the moment. And we talk about just trying to enjoy playing together and enjoy the competition, and the one thing I told the guys was no phones. We went in there for about an hour, and I said, go do whatever you want. So I walked in, my boys were in there, my two young boys, they were playing music, they were dancing. They didn't have, they were playing some games like drum, like it was fun. Because I knew you couldn't hold on to that kind of like focus for an hour or more,
Right.
especially in the heat. But so hopefully they kind of took that, over prepared thing from Del Barton to be okay. Let's just enjoy where we're at, and it ended up working pretty well.
That's pretty awesome. I mean, how, I'm a high school guidance counselor, so, I'm always concerned about more than just like what's going on there, and that cool thing of being able to say, like, guys, just go make up a game. Like the things that were very natural, maybe to you and I,
Mhm.
growing up in that other generation, where now it's like, oh, I've been told I cannot use my phone, so therefore we actually need to use our creative senses, and
Yeah.
like those are the kinds of things I just always feel like the kids will remember for forever probably, and that rain delay probably is something that will stick with those guys.
I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will. I told them the stories of when I was in high school years and years ago, and going through it. And the one thing I remember was a goal. I remember one other piece of our championship, and then I remember that we got subs afterwards. There were no tailgates, but the parents delivered subs, and we got on the bus and went home. But I remember being with my buddies, and so hopefully that's kind of what they take from it too.
That's pretty fantastic. You mentioned, obviously being a quote unquote outsider to all of this. So let's enlighten everybody, because that's certainly a big piece of why I wanted to have you on today, because of your fantastic background, and to expose you to the New Jersey lacrosse community for those who may not have an intimate knowledge of who you are. Played at Loyola, coached at Albany, the head coach at Siena, defensive coordinator at Brown, and then now at Seton Hall Prep. Talk about your kind of evolution through the coaching community and now landing kind of where you are, and how, I mean, I don't think it could possibly be that you are not so much better for some of the maybe negative things that people look back on and go like,
Sure.
oh, that didn't work out or that didn't work out. But I
Yeah.
mean, like, that's what athletics is, right? So
Yeah.
to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. No, playing at Loyola College, I was really, really privileged to play at Loyola and with a great team and great guys under a Hall of Fame coach, Dave Cottle. Uh, Actually, a story came up with about Coach Cottle today with one of our other assistants, Matt Stagnita, his father, Jim Stagnita, a longtime coach, and he was telling a story. He played golf with Coach Cottle recently, and he hasn't changed. But coming from Maryland, a Maryland public school, high school, and having those experiences and being able to see lacrosse at a high level and know that I wanted to go into was either going to be teaching fifth grade or being a college lacrosse coach. And I was lucky enough Scott Marr needed an assistant when I was graduating. I was lucky enough to have an opportunity to go up to Albany. I would say that I was not prepared for upstate New York. I moved there in January and had no idea what was going on. This is lovely, this actual spring that we're having right now.
First fake spring, Coach. First fake spring.
That's great, and they get it in Albany too, but it happens in April. So, but to be around a guy like Scott Marr for 7-8 years is unbelievable. I tell my guys, you have a chance to play at Albany for Scott Marr and Merrick Thompson and John Maloney, man. They're great human beings, and what I learned from Scott was that joy and that passion of the game. It's not just about winning. And he has done a great job of growing a program. When you talk about Albany guys, they're all over the place. They're in New York. A lot of teachers, a lot of coaches. Several Division I head coaches, some Division III coaches. And it's because of the love of the game, the way he does it. And I learned so much about how to care about your players from him. And then actually went to Hobart College for 3 years, worked with C.W. Johnson, and to go from a place like Albany, that was a Division I team for 1 year before I got there, and then to go to Hobart, who had been playing lacrosse for over 100 years. And the history there is unbelievable. The national championships, and I actually found a vault, a closet with the game films that go back to lacrosse and football game films that go back to like the 1920s. So all that history is it was so cool to be part of it, and be in a place where that's where the game started, right? I think my son Luke's going to make an appearance here trying to get a book. Are you getting a book off the shelf there, dude? No? All right.
Do it.
Sneaking some stuff.
That's great. Yeah. So you just said that, so you found this vault. Is that like the old guy equivalent, like what we would do of like going down the YouTube rabbit hole, but just like the old school one?
It was unbelievable, man. I found a VHS of the 1986 Syracuse Hobart game. And like kids won't see this, or kids won't understand this if they watch this on YouTube or Spotify, whatever you guys are on. But like back in the VHS days, the tapes, you would have to like tweak it because it would be like grainy in between. You had to make sure it was good. But the tape came, it was Boswell Field, which is now redone. It used to be grass. It was 10,000 people. You could think of Tevlin Field, right? How you have some stands, but then the fence around the track, that was Boswell. And there were 10,000 people there at this game. And it was just, guys were, legends of the game out there playing. And but that was like my everyday walking into the office. I actually sat in one of the coolest traditions. I don't know how many people know this, but I go off on a tangent, so cut me off. But at Hobart, after they won 12 straight national championships, Division III national championships in the 80s and 90s. And after the third year, they had a gentleman there who was like a lifer up there, and he was a woodworker. He would make each guy that scored a goal, their first goal, a wooden H. But for each national championship, he would carve a number. So the number's about 13 inches, and he would hide it under the scorer's table. So you're talking like guys, Jeff Tambroni, Coach Tambroni, his name is written on a wooden number, and they have all 12 of these numbers up in the office. And my desk was under number 12. down in the corner, and just you looked up and Guy Van Arsdale, Mark Van Arsdale, just legends of different legends of the game in upstate New York, especially. So, what a great spot to be and be from. So this is the other
That's
son. That was
incredible.
Jake up in the background there. So yeah,
I
just a
love it.
great spot, and Steve Brundage, you talk about kind of closing with Steve Brundage, the head coach there, was
Sure.
a teammate of mine at Loyola. He was a freshman when I was a senior. And, it was pretty cool. We were at a recruiting event with one of our other teammates down in Delaware at that DE Turf complex, and went out and had dinner with Coach Brundage and his staff and a couple of buddies, and just sharing stories about that stuff. But lacrosse is so much more than the kind of X's and O's and wins and losses and stuff. And it's much more than just New Jersey lacrosse, but every spot upstate, they're kind of in a bubble. Albany's in a bubble. Maryland has their bubble. It's pretty cool for me to have lived in different areas and see those different kind of cultures of the game.
You're so right about it just being small, but and something else that I think is interesting, I know that you were like originally in your brain elementary school teacher, middle school teacher potentially, and then went down the coaching path, and now you kind of find yourself back, in that role. And correct me if I'm wrong. Your title is Dean of Men at Seton Hall. Is that correct?
Assistant Dean of Men.
Assistant Dean of Men. Okay.
Michael Halsey is our Dean of Men. He's a Del Barton alum. So he's been with us for 23 years as a teacher and now Dean of Men. So yeah.
Talk about that a little bit. I mean, because I obviously working in a school, when you have a coach who does not work in the school, it is different than when you have one that works in the school. Getting to interact with the young men every day, there is, in addition to just building, that rapport and that kind of community with them, there is a different sense of accountability on a day-to-day basis. I think that would be fair to say. Talk about your time now being back in a school, or being in a school, because I don't know that you were ever in initially, but
right.
And how that has helped you as a quote unquote not New Jersey outsider guy develop this program now into one that was able to win a state championship in year one.
Well, just an incredible experience. And I think being in a school day to day it's different than my previous 22 years in the profession I was in. It's a day job. I talked to one of guy Chris Delano, who coaches Niskayuna High School up there. He's one of their chemistry teachers, and I saw him at a box tournament. I'm like, how do you teach all day and then be as good as you guys are in upstate? It's a second job, and so day to day, I look at myself as kind of a problem solver, right? If issues pop up for a kid, or we kind of help them solve those problems or point them in the right direction and get their guidance counselors involved, or maybe sometimes it's a call home, but it really is neat. One of my duties is every morning our kids walk in the front door and they all sign in. Basically, they scan in, and so I see about 900 kids every day. Some of them are my guys, some of them aren't, some of them are athletes, some of them, a lot of them aren't. So to get to see that many faces and get to know that many kids was a little bit of a culture shock, because I'm used to 50 guys every day in some capacity. My office is always open. We have the D guys come in or whatever, but for so long it was all about lacrosse, and really expanded my world. It's pretty neat. It's pretty neat to see, and helped me as a father, and hopefully helped me as a coach. I think being in the school is a good thing for my position as a coach, because I do get to see some of those guys, and sometimes you get a heads up on something that maybe going with them that's not going well, or right, and maybe that informs how I see them on the field. That's not to say it's necessary. I know plenty of very successful coaches that are in the same school, right? But it certainly is I think a blessing for me to be there. And again, the whole world of lacrosse, the reason I'm here is a phone call from my former captain's brother, Sean Quinn. Summit guys, Kevin, well, they're Rochester guys, but Sean's son is now, one of his youngest son is now at Drexel, he's a sophomore, and Sean kind of called me out of the blue after talking with Kevin, and I didn't know Sean as a player at Loyola. He was before my time, but his brother Kevin was my captain and one of the best guys I've been around leadership wise or otherwise with players. And those kind of connections, you never know how you're going to end up there or where you're going to end up. You just try to make the best of the best you can with where you are. I tell you, we landed at a great spot.
And I think what you said about maybe something that's happening during the day, coloring how you see things on the field, I don't think you can understate that at all. I mean, if you were to just show up at the end of the day and there's a kid who's dragging or whatever, and now all of a sudden coach is on his ass, and doing something without that perspective. I mean, it is 2026, okay? Like the young student athlete is different now than what they were. So for us to be able to have those informed opinions about how we might treat that, and I say this all the time as a ref, because working in a school, it's one of, I think, the most common misconceptions is everybody says, well, you didn't do that for that kid, and so now you have to do it for this kid. And I love telling everybody, I'm like, I don't need to treat you all the same to treat you fairly. I can treat you completely differently and treat you very, very fairly.
100%. 100%. As a coach or a ref or a guidance counselor, every situation is, now you need guidelines, but every situation is its own situation and every person's different. We're all different and we all need different things. And sometimes you need a foot and sometimes you need a hug. Sometimes you need to yell. Sometimes you need just a quiet whisper. So, I think being around them, I wish I could be around the kids more. One of the drawbacks to high school, right, is that they're in 6 classes, bang, 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 and trying to sneak in some time to, whether it's watch a film or just stop in or talk or just grab a kid. And I think one of the things that we do, we actually meet and do a leadership thing, once a week, starting in the fall. I took that from Mike Daly when I was at Brown. They labeled it life skills. And, they would joke about, well, you're watching lacrosse. Oh, that is a life skill. I mean, if you can't check behind you and know how to snap back, you may just step out in front of a bus someday and not learn how to check behind. So, but we spend time. That's where, for me, it was really important, didn't do it quite as much this fall, but having lunch with the guys. We had junior lunches on Thursdays and senior lunches on Fridays because I didn't know who these kids were, and the tough part is we still have tryouts. So,
sure.
So some of those guys aren't going to be there. Maybe some of those guys can't be because they're doing other things. Alex Anti just finished his basketball career last night, and he hasn't done anything for lacrosse. And I was like, Alex, don't come, don't do stuff. Like, you need to focus on hoops right now.
Yeah. So you see, you brought it up, and I wanted to go there a little bit. So for those of everybody that's listening to this that don't know Mike Daly is one of the funniest human beings on the planet, in my opinion. Okay.
Unbelievable.
Deadpan, dry sense of humor that if you don't everything is like typically pretty professional, when you're out there. And then, so, as you do things with certain people long enough, you really start to understand their personalities. And if you didn't know Mike, you'd be like, man, he's a little standoffish. He's a little bit, and oh boy, the exact opposite. What was spending 6 years with that every day? Did you you probably had abs because you were laughing so hard, I would imagine.
It was, I'll tell you, it was funny. It was great. Him and Brett Holm, our other assistant, Mike Higgins was up there. He was a former coach at Trinity for a number of years with us. But Coach Daly is, I think, one of the most genuine people that you can be around. He is plain Jane as you can get it. He does not sugarcoat things. we joke with him. He is that he was being too approachable. He was like, Coach, somebody came in to see you and knocked on the door. You're being too approachable. You need to be less approachable. But he does. He gives off a little bit of an aura of like, I don't want to make this guy mad. We would joke. Coach Holm and I would joke with the guys like, dude, are you trying to get us fired? Like, what do you like? No, seriously. Like, you mess up again. But he is. I've never seen someone interact, especially with officials. And myself, I was a head coach for 7 years at Siena, and I never cursed at a referee, and I got 6 flags in my 7 years as a head coach. Coach Daly cursed at a lot of referees and used a lot of colorful language, and I'm pretty sure in my 6 years with him, he didn't get a flag. I still to this day don't understand the difference of how that happened, but he's one of the smartest, brightest guys out there. I know his time down at Maryland last couple of years. They really valued him. Kind of working with their players on a personnel kind of level. One of the best leaders and connectors that I've been around. I just think, one of the biggest, most fierce competitors that I've been around. He actually shared a story. He was competing with his daughter, who's now a junior at Brown on the crew team, and he was competing with his daughter in getting the best gas mileage out of their cars, and he would put his car in neutral on the highway to get better gas mileage. But the kicker was he shared with the team, he didn't know they were competing, and he's beating her. And I'm like, man, he's a different cat. He really is. But again, I learned so much from him, and so lucky to have spent a lot of time with him, and still connected. So
I made a joke the other day because getting from Central Jersey, where I live, to Stony Brook, you need a spaceship to get there. Because it's however many miles.
There's no good way, man.
No good way. It stinks. So I said, oh man, there's a redeeming quality to going to Stony Brook now, is that I get to listen to Coach Daly for a little bit. So that's positive. Who's the biggest influence on your coaching career, would you say?
Yeah, really. I would say all 3 guys I worked for had huge influences. Again, I think Scott Marr. I came out of Loyola, and there's all kinds of stories, good stories, and I'm sure not good stories about Coach Cottle. He showed me what it means to really want to win and put kids and players in your program in a position to win, and being part of that program. Scott showed me what it means to truly love your players and love the game. I think if you talk to just about any Albany player, I think you'd be hard pressed for any of them to say, nah, Coach Marr isn't one of the most influential men in my life. That's a guy who I saw him drive 3 hours in the middle of the night to Western New York because a guy was in crisis, and it was one of his guys. So the love for your kids is amazing. And so I took that away. Plus, he's got a great mind for the game and just a great friend. T.W. Johnson at Hobart taught me, I learned so much about planning and being kind of buttoned up and not just working hard, but working hard for a purpose because you really believe in something and the history behind things. And Coach Daly, again, like just being relentless. You see a lot of guys give, and I was one of these guys as a head coach when I was in Siena. You give, inspirational stuff, right? Maybe it's a flyer on 10 things you can do better, or here, whatever it might be. Every single day, Coach Daly had something for his guys. I mean, it was relentless, and it was always about being a better man, being a better teammate, being a better leader. Very little of that had to do with how to throw the ball in net. And he would do that too, obviously. We talked about that all the time, right? But I think he as a developer of young men is rubbed off. And I try to emulate a little bit of each of those as best I can, while being genuine and true to myself and who I am. So, but those guys have all had a huge impact on me.
Let's actually talk about your Seton Hall Prep team for a second here, because I know that there are certain everybody's gonna be like, "Where's that part of this interview?" uh, the, how do you? I mean, you set the bar pretty high, Coach. How do you follow up on what you did last season? Has it been challenging, or how challenging has it been? And give us some insight into what your team's going to look like in 2026.
Yeah, I mean, we tried to set that up last year during the season. The 2025 team is not the guys they played with the year before, and it's not going to be the guys that you're playing with next year. And they had a lot of success, and it's unbelievable. And I think one of the things we started to do this year, I mean, 25 team graduated, 19 seniors, right? And a lot of those guys played a lot of minutes and had, big impact on the field. Some of those guys had just as big an impact in the locker room and off the field. And those are some things that people don't see. But there was a really good, strong group of young men who were all of them doing great things right now in college. Some of them in the college game at the Division I level, some of them in the club level. But a great group, and certainly a lot of success, and just a ton of fun to be, go on that ride with them. This group we set up in September and said, guys, we are not defending anything. This is the only time this group is going to be together, this 25 team. And so it's your job to bring as many guys in, get them on the bus, to use a Mike Daly phrase, as you can, and make sure everybody's on the bus. And it's our job as coaches to put them in the right seats. And then, hopefully we make enough plays to win a lot of games. But so we do. We have a good, large group of seniors again. Got a couple guys joining us who didn't play last year. And as we talk right now, we just finished day 2 of tryouts. So, but a great group. We returned one offensive starter supposedly from that group of 6 guys. We returned really 2 guys on the defensive end, holes wise, that saw a lot of minutes. So we're going to be different, completely different group. But I think it's a really strong group of young men, a group of guys that now we call it year 1 as a staff. Last year being year 0 and not knowing what to expect, but year 1 here, they've been through us. They know who we are and what our expectations are. So, we walked out yesterday. Practice started at 3:15. I walked out of the coach's locker room at 3:17, and they were 2 minutes into their stretching. And so that was great for me to see. I didn't need to be out there to start it up, and we said, okay, here's the next drill. And those seniors who had already divided up and everything, they know what that 2-ball line drill looks like and what it's supposed to look like. I didn't have to make the calls on what hand to use and how to do a ground ball. They stopped it to teach the ground balls to the younger guys. And so I think we're in a good place that way. I think, the challenge for us is going to be, there's a heck of a lot of talent in New Jersey. And for us to have success, we're going to have to figure out ways to beat teams like Westfield and Chatham and St. Augustine and Del Barton and all those teams. So it's going to be a challenge for sure.
So as we wrap this up, because I want to be respectful of your time, and thank you so much for doing this with me. Any pregame rituals? Any go-to meals? Something that's consistent game in, game out?
No, I'm not a superstitious guy necessarily. I actually every year since college, I put a piece of tape on my chest. We had this guy's named Bob Horsey, he was our captain. It was a cool story, but he hung tape and he wanted us to play for somebody. So he hung tape in our lockers and we put it on our helmets. And that year I lost a really close friend of mine. And so I put his name on my piece of tape. And ever since then, I've always had his name, I play for him every game. But it's not like superstition necessarily. It's just what I've always done. But it's funny to watch some of the kids, they put the right shoe on, or they get the both, right shoe, right sock, and then the left sock, left shoe. It's pretty interesting. Yeah.
Kids are fun.
They're fun. Awesome. They're unbelievable. I take exception with a lot of their music, but we don't agree on that, but I threaten them at practice. Like if the music sucks, I give them about 2 minutes, and then Coach Stockwell puts on some country. So,
Well, I mean, I feel like that's every old guy that, every old guy generation to the
100%.
whatever the next one is. Because they did it to us too. That's for sure.
100%. Yep. For sure.
I'll end on this, a fun one. Coolest thing about Jersey that you were like, oh, this is actually okay here since you've now lived here.
It's funny you ask, because all my friends, whether upstate or down in Maryland, they're like, how's Jersey? And like my answer is, it's not as bad as everybody says. It's actually pretty good. Well, we live up in Boonton, and we have a deli called Old Town Deli, and it's on the wall, so it has to be true that it's the best Taylor ham, egg, and cheese in New Jersey.
Oh, buddy, you don't know what you just did, maybe.
I'm just saying, it's there. It says it, so it has to be true.
That is not even what I mean. You might have just reignited the Taylor ham versus pork roll debate right now, because it happens all the time.
It's North Jersey. I've already been told. It's North Jersey. It's Taylor ham. I can't. I'm not gonna walk in there and call it anything different. So that's pretty cool. I do enjoy that, and it's pretty fun around there.
Awesome. Well, Coach, again, thank you so much for taking some time. Hopefully everybody got to learn a little bit about you and about the Pirates, and congratulations on a freaking unbelievable year last year, and best of luck as you move forward.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
My pleasure. This has been the first ever overtime edition of the New Jersey Lacrosse Podcast. Check back in with every Monday's release of our normal episodes, and hopefully we have a lot more of these coming during the season. For Coach John Svec of the Seton Hall Pirates, I'm Keith Glock. Thanks for watching.